Bring it on. Everything different, everything true. I am ready for my next thing to do. Oh, I know it's gonna be everything. I'm through crying, I'm through waiting, I'm through hoping against all hope. I'm through longing for something going that'll never return. I think I'll find me bringing it on. Everything new, everything different, everything true. I am ready for my next thing to do. Oh, I know it's gonna be everything. Through grieving, through dreaming, not the life I had is ever coming back. No more wishing on someone else's star that'll never be mine. I think it's time to bring it on. Everything new, everything different, everything true. I am ready for my next thing to do. Oh, I know it's gonna be everything. I've survived many times before. Broken hearts and slamming doors. I'll be alright, yes I will once more. Just as I did back then, I'm gonna rise again. Bring it on. Everything new, everything different, everything true. I am ready for my next thing to do. Oh, I know it's gonna be everything new. Oh, I know it's gonna be everything new. Woo!
Yes, that's Grayson Nierenberg playing Daniel Namath's song, Everything New. Thank you so much, Grayson, for being here today. Welcome, everybody, to Center for Spiritual Living Morristown. Those of you who are here in person, that's always the best. And those of you that are experiencing us online, whether it's today, tomorrow, or next year, because we know that that will exist forever. So we are wrapping up the month of May. It's unbelievable, right? Where we explore the theme, embracing our emotions. And it fits in the theme for the year, which is living everyday wonder. And today the topic is the gift of grief.
Good grief.
Good grief, yeah. So what we're going to explore is this idea when there seems to be so much to grieve, so much sorrow, is that it becomes our duty as spiritual beings having this human experience to contribute to the healing, right? And so we contribute to the healing by turning to that which is eternal, which is love. And it asks us to slow down and to take action from a different place. So we're going to explore that today. My name is Frankie Timmers, and I'm the Spiritual Director here at Center for Spiritual Living Morristown. You can find us on the web. And I always love saying that because we always have people in our midst that don't know about our website. So cslmorristown.org is a great website to explore, to see what's going on. All the talks from YouTube are posted there as well. And if you're on YouTube, I know it's very limited. Thumb up, thumb down, and maybe a comment, which we welcome. But on Facebook Live, you can do a lot more. So say hello to each other and use the bubbles. We are really blessed today because we have with us a practitioner from Princeton, John Heron. And John is going to share a story, a healing story today, and he's going to bless us with a treatment as well. So we do a Namaste practice here. Namaste just means, is the Sanskrit word, the one single Sanskrit word that says the divinity in me blesses the divinity in you. So I want you to not just give that in a more open, free way, but also receive it. So turn to somebody or a few somebodies and just greet them. Namaste. Namaste. Yes. So. So when you listen to John today, I want you to know that he's also available for what we call our new treatment, Express. What does the word express usually mean? I pretend to snap both fingers, but only one works. So. Yes, express. So you don't get to tell your story. You don't get to go into the problem. There are other times for that. You can call our practitioners or any practitioner anywhere in CSL to have support. But John will be there and say, what would you like me to do treatment for? You tell him, and he treats. So, and he will cut you off if you are attached to the story. So he's available for that over there, standing, because you know what happens when we sit down? Yeah. We love to get into the story, so please, though, we want you to know that we're available to listen to your story and to explore it and to find the threads as well. So, John, will you now bless us with your gift of story?
Well, I think I'm the one being blessed. So I'm John Heron. I'm a practitioner with CSL Princeton. I want to start off, Reverend Frankie had us choose these message cards before we started all of this today, and I wanted to read the one that I picked up because it's really the essence of, I think, why we're all here. You can't lose in this game. You can't go wrong. It's not part of the plan. There's no way not to get where you're going. There is no way to miss your destination. There is no way. So on a day when we're going to talk about some of the real challenges that I think many of us are experiencing with the world around us, not that it is any time when there's not challenges, but lately there have been some real challenges. I always ask myself, this teaching, this wonderful teaching, and I suppose everybody here and everybody online, whatever, we attend this and we listen to Reverend Frankie's message because life is challenging. And we want to learn how to approach that from a deeper place inside, from a truer place inside, and all of that stuff. And it's something I think about a lot. What does it look like when we practice this teaching? Not just think about it, not even just feel it, but really absorb it so that it becomes part of our lives. What does that look like? Let me just put this down. I happen to you know how you're flipping channels? I got an hour free and I want to just watch some TV. And there was something I came across, something I had recorded. It was a PBS documentary about a man named Duke Kahanamoku. I don't know whether any of you, some of you may have seen this or have heard of him. And it was really fascinating, and there was something in there that really struck me on this theme of what does it look like? If you do whatever your spiritual practice is every day, reading, meditating, treating, whatever that is, what does it look like when we really absorb that? So here's this guy, this was very early 20th century, before World War I, before 1910, right? So it was in Hawaii. Duke Kahanamoku sure sounds like a Hawaiian name, right? He's an interesting character. He went to the Olympics 4 times, won 3 gold medals, one silver when he lost to Johnny Weissmuller. Some of you are old enough to know who Johnny Weissmuller was. And he practiced. He was a surfer. He was a surfer dude. Yeah. That's what the guy was, right? At a time before surfing was anything new, anybody knew anything about it. It was a thing that people in Hawaii did. They had a whole, and there was a whole philosophy. Hawaiian life was built around a philosophy of aloha, which doesn't just mean hello and goodbye. It was a recognition of oneness, which is what we teach here, right? Whatever language you use for that. And it was just something he did. It was part of his life, right? And he went surfing. At that time, there were no commercial surfboards. If you wanted to surf, you made your own surfboard, right? You had to know about wood. You had to know how to treat the wood. You had to do all of that. And nobody was going to do it for you, so you had to do it yourself. A small group of people who did this. Because he was a champion swimmer, and there's a whole story on that too, he was invited to come from Hawaii to the mainland. He brought his surfboard with him because it was part of his life. Nobody had ever seen anybody do this before. He started the sport of surfing. He is recognized in the world of surfing as the one who started the whole thing. So the story, the particular story was, there was this one particular day and it was extremely stormy. Now he and his friends, they didn't do anything. They were surfer dudes, right? They hung out at the beach every day. And if it was stormy, they hung out at the beach, but they didn't go into the water. There was this one particular day when it was dangerous. The water was dangerous. So he and his friends were hanging out on the beach. They could see out in the distance that one of the owners of one of the fishing boats for tourists had gone out, even with the very rough seas. And they were watching. It was close enough to the shore that they could see what was happening, but far enough out that it was beyond the ability of anybody to do anything if anything happened. And sure enough, the water was so rough that the fishing boat overturned. And they could see it happening, but nobody could go. This was before there were people on the beach watching things, right? This was, as I said, it was around 1908 or something like that. Now, Duke, who was an incredible swimmer, his whole life was sort of in the ocean. He didn't stop. His friends, they were all frozen because the water was so rough, everybody knew you were not going into that surf and coming back. Duke grabbed his board without thinking, grabbed his board, went into the surf, saved 8 people. And again and again, going out. And nobody else dared to go into this surf. 8 times he went out and back, right? And saved 8 people. And what did he do after he saved these 8 people? Well, while this was going on, the local newspaper and the radio station, there was no television at that time, right? The radio station heard about it, and they sent people down to the shore to interview. And they heard, because all the other surfers told him, this guy Duke, he was just saving people. But they couldn't find him. Because what he had done was, all he could think about was the other 10 people on the boat that he couldn't save. And so he went and hid because he was really grieving for all the people he couldn't save. None of this, the documentary had interviews with him and interviews with his friends, and they brought on some of the people that he saved also, who hadn't seen him since that day. And it really just struck me, despite looking out at the surf and saying, there is nobody who can survive going out in that surf, it didn't come from here. It came from his, he simply went, he had his surfboard, he went out and he saved 8 people. And then he grieved for the people he couldn't save. To me, I thought, that's a good example of what this teaching looks like when you really absorb it, when it becomes part of your life. It's not a thing, oh, I can't do that, that's dangerous, or I would have to be crazy to do that. He simply did it. And then he grieved for what he couldn't do. It just really, really stayed with me. How does that, I'm a practitioner, right? I'm here in service, developing the consciousness to be ready to be in service in consciousness for when the world says, here's an opportunity for that. Well, there's an example. There's an example. Can any of us get to that place? And how do we get to that place where it's so much a part of who we are? We ignore what's going on, the craziness in the world, and we really respond to the world just automatically from a place of deeper, truer consciousness. Right? I think, to me, from a very human point of view, that's sort of the goal, right? To all the practices that I do, whatever, meditation, treatment, and all that kind of stuff, I hope that I get to a place where it's so much a part of my being that when it shows up in front of me, I just do it. So that's, that message stayed with me from that documentary. It's good to watch NPR, PBS. There's good stuff there, right? So with that thought in mind, I'll do a treatment. So this word is for all those listening, for all those participating, for Reverend Frankie, for CSL Morristown, knowing that there is a truth, and it is a truth of love, a truth of unconditional love, no conditions. Nothing stops this. It is what is present as the world, as the universe around us. And if it is present as the world and as the universe, it is present in us, as us, through us. And since that is true, I know that each one of us is growing in the presence, in the consciousness of the presence of spirit. And it is being expressed in every aspect of our lives, from the very morning when we get up and have our coffee to the evening when we're ready to go to sleep. Everything in our lives is an expression of that unconditional loving, because each one of us now knows unconditional means there is no condition in which that love is not present and expressed. And since this is true, our lives are a full expression of that unconditional loving. No matter what is going on around us, we know that the truth is unconditional loving is present. And that unconditional loving heals all the hard places inside, all the places of pain inside. The reality is not that pain. The reality is the loving that is now expressing in all of our lives. And knowing this to be the absolute truth, realizing this truth, I release this to the law. It is done, and so it is.
So it is.
So this is a song that I actually worked on with my friend Natalia, who she's living in West Virginia right now, but hopefully when she comes home for a little bit, she'll be able to come and we can do it again together. But it's called Power of Your Love. And there's a repeating part a little bit of the ways into the song and then again at the end. And I just wanted to let you all know the lyrics. It's, I feel the power of your love that you send from up above. So that's the part that will repeat if anyone wants to sing. Dark sky, sad eye, keep falling after so many tries. I wanna realize the good I have inside, that I've forgotten through all the lies. Lord, show me the way, the path that you paved, through all your love and everlasting grace. Give me the faith to transform my faith from a place of quiet sadness to a loving embrace, and open up my eyes to reach higher heights, to break through the bounds that's got me tied down. I feel the power of your love that you were sent from up above. I feel the power of your love that you were sent from up above. I feel the power of your love that you were sent from up above. I feel the power of your love that you were sent from up above. Reaching out my hand, wanna join the stands. Won't you teach me how to be a better man? Following your ways to clear up all this haze. Make way for tomorrow to be a better day. And give me the faith to transform my faith from a place of quiet sadness to a loving embrace. Open up my eyes to reach higher heights, to break through the bounds that's kept me tied down. I feel the power of your love that you just sent from up above. I feel the power of your love that you was sent from up above. I feel the power of your love that you was sent from up above. I feel the power of your love that you was sent from up above. I feel the power of your love that you was sent from up above. I feel the power of your love that you was sent from up above. I feel the power of your love that you was sent from up above. I feel the power of your love that you was sent from up above. I feel the power of your love that you was sent from up above. I feel the power of your love that you was sent from up above. Cheering for my backup vocals.
So So I know you all sang a couple of really lovely lines. Did you feel it? Yes. Really, really feel it. You know, it's a beautiful line, the power from above. We know it's within, it's around, it's above, it's beside us. To really feel that power is very important, not just today, but every day. And so that is the healing power of love. And we need it right now. I don't know about you, but, and I've been sharing this, is that I've really experienced so much grief. Last week I talked about eco-grief. It's a new word, eco-anxiety, eco-grief. It's just that thing that most of us are feeling right now because of what's happening with our planet, is what's happening on our earth, and what's happening around us. I mean, don't forget, and in the last few years, we've not just lost 1 million people to COVID in this country, but just think about how many people were directly affected because of those 1 million losses. And some of them are right here in this room or witnessing this live stream. And then we have mass shootings that seem to be the norm. We've had 212 so far, and it's not even a half a year. Just in 1 week, 2 weeks, we experienced it in Buffalo, Laguna Woods in California, and then of course, Uvalde, Texas. It's almost unbearable to witness the images, to listen to the people, and if you don't watch the news, just the thought of it, that is happening in our land. And then there's, of course, the personal losses. It's not just people, it's places and things. Just think how you feel when you lose a precious piece of jewelry. Just think how you feel when you lose a job or a partner or a home. Loss and grief is not just about people. And then there's the personal losses. One of our members that most of you don't know, Rita Brodigan, just passed away this week. She was 103. She was at our center when I arrived almost 30 years ago, sharp as a tack, playing the stock market and selling her home a few years ago and moving into a full care place. And she was on hospice much longer than any of us thought. And we know our beloved Kathleen, who lost her mother, who was, I think, 100 something. And then Marty Oxenhorn, one of our members, who passed away recently at 93. And so we have our own personal losses. And then there's Memorial Day, and we're going, woohoo, beginning of summer, I'm off. But it represents something very sorrowful. To me, my vision is peace in the world, that there is no need for war at all. So that none of our boys and girls, because most of them are that young, have to die that way. And so it's this chronic grief that I think much of humanity is experiencing. When we don't deal with grief, where do you think it goes? Rhetorical question. You don't have to answer it. It goes somewhere, right? It stays in us. And so when there's too much of it, we have to really be aware and present in our own experience with what we're feeling. And that was the theme this month, embracing our emotions. And so the topic today is the gift of grief. And you might say, what the hell, Frankie? The gift of grief? What gift does grief possibly have? There's just no way. Well, you're right. There is no gift of grief. There are infinite gifts of grief. What about that? Call me crazy for that one. And I can share from my own personal experience that there are many gifts. When we surrender to the experience of grief and loss, what's on the other side is freedom, peace, love, harmony, and joy. But most people don't want to feel it, so they numb out. or they drink or drug or go shopping or have sex or are on the phones all day. Pick any distraction. But when we really go there and when we really feel it, what we realize is that we get to surrender to the flow and discover that the reason we grieve is because we love in the first place. And so that means we decide we're not letting fear and all the emotions attached to fear run the show. We choose love, which has the whole other area of emotions that we've all talked about this whole month, right? And so it is Sue Morter who said in the book, The Energy Codes, if we can start to think of emotions as energies, as effects to anchor or expand, we won't be afraid of sadness. The biggest fear I ever experienced in my life for many years was the fear of losing my mother. Dad, well, was okay. Right? Siblings, I didn't give much thought to, even though I lost 4 siblings, 2 to suicide and 2 to traffic accidents. And then there's a handful of really close friends over the years. So I've had my experience with grief. But the thought of losing my mother almost killed me. I couldn't even think about it. And so the last few times I went to visit the Netherlands where my family lives, I was very aware when I said goodbye to my mother that it might be the last time I would see her. That didn't happen for years until it did. And I thought, I won't be able to handle that. If when she dies, it will kill me. I won't be able to handle it. So I walked around with this fear that when she would die, I wouldn't survive that. Have you noticed that the things that you think you're not going to be able to handle, you do anyway? Yes, right? I handled it. I lived. I survived. And it actually made me a better person. The moment she passed, and I had to fly to the Netherlands by myself with that, I surrendered. And I had this experience where I realized she became part of the universal mother and was going to be able to mother me in a whole new way. In a way that she, as a physical human mother, couldn't because of her own history. And I decided, instead of fighting the loss, to surrender to the grief and to allow the universal mother to mother me. And 23 years later, I experienced that every single day. The messenger is the red cardinal. People have red cardinal, butterfly, right? Dragonflies. Mine's a red cardinal. And there are 2 pairs living in our backyard. So I hear and see them almost all the time. And she's the messenger. So sometimes when I'm struggling and I hear that weird chirp, I go, okay, Mom, I got it. There she is, still mothering me. And so what I realized is that what happens with grief, it's the fear of it is because we are in a state of selfishness and possessiveness. And we forget that there was a soul. It wasn't about the person that filled our needs or had to take care of us in some way or had to feed me in a certain way. It was much bigger. It was a soul, and that soul was there to experience life in a way, and we had an agreement on the path to learn from each other and to grow together and to expand our consciousness. And so what we learn is that grief isn't just about loss and pain and heartache, but it's about love wanting to be expressed. It's love's calling card. It's love calling us to higher grounds. The song, your story, right? That means that we have to take time, and a lot of time when someone passes, we don't just not want to feel it. We're busy making all the arrangements until things slow down and we're forced to sit and be still and experience what we're experiencing and feeling what we're feeling. And the beauty is that feelings don't stay, they move when we're in the present moment. It is when we're asked to be moved by love. And I don't know about you, but my guess is that you agree with me, is that when you're around people who are grieving or you're grieving yourself, there's not a lot of room for bullshit, excuse my language, or stuff, or distractions, or wasting time and energy. There is just that feeling of, all I can do is breathe. All I can do is just be. All I can do is listen to my heart. All I can do is be in the present moment. And people get very reflective and inspiring. Those of you that went to Marty's memorial or watched it on Zoom, everybody that was speaking about Marty was speaking about him so highly. And some people were saying, you know, I wish they had done this before he died. I mean, that's why I had my roast. You know, you guys talk about me before I die. This is my eulogy. I don't need a funeral because I'm good. Right? Because we often talk about the person in a very inspiring way when they pass. We need to do that before they go, or at least experience it in our heart. And even Mary and his wife said there were things about Marty that I didn't know. They were married 60 years. So there's always something to learn and to experience, right? And so there's something that happens. People get more quiet. They don't waste a lot of words. They speak from their heart. They're very present in the experience. They reflect on the gifts, because most of the time when somebody passes, you kind of forget about the icky stuff. And you just move into that place of gratitude. It is Desmond Tutu and the Dalai Lama who say in the Book of Joy, the way through the sadness and grief that comes from great loss is to use it as a motivation and generate a deeper sense of purpose. And so what I've discovered is that when people are grieving, I love being around them because that's when they are the most real. They're the most authentic because there is no room for anything inauthentic because they're in their hearts. And so the invitation is to be in that place all the time, to be that present, to be that much in our heart, to remember that love is all there is, to taste life in its fullness. And so I often talk about the exquisite aspect of grief that we are called to arrive at. And the invitation really is that we have to stay connected to our essential nature. Whether we call it higher power, God, the Lord above, spirit, our heart of hearts, our essential nature, peace, it's all already within us. We're not going to find it outside. And then ask ourselves, what does it have for me? What does it have for me that I need the most right now? And how can I receive it? Because a lot of time we unconsciously go, no, thank you. Not worthy. It's too much, right? To receive it in the way we can. You may not be able to drink a whole glass of it, but you can take a sip, right? And to find the antidote to sorrow and grief and loss and heartache. And I have found the best antidote, but you don't want to know, right? The best antidote, what do you think it is?
Giving.
Giving.
Going inside.
Going inside.
Loving.
Loving.
Gratitude.
You win the prize. Gratitude, which seems counterintuitive, right? How can I experience loss and be grateful for that? Spiritual mumbo jumbo. But it's true. Because I've learned that I would rather have had the 78 minus 65 years of my mother than not at all. A person very dear to me lost their spouse after they were together for 17 years. And she said, you know what? I'm focused on the 17 years I got to have with him rather than living my life without. Because there's no brainer choice. So they slipped into gratitude, and gratitude became the healing that they needed. Not that they were there all the time, but that was the intention and the practice. So I got this great quote the other day from Jesse Dillon, Bob Dylan's son. Who knew? I didn't even know he had a son. And Jesse says, when you awaken love and laughter in your life, and you know what? When my mother passed, we didn't have a lot of laughter, but when my dad passed, we laughed our socks off. Because my dad was so funny and we had so many funny stories. And that's another thing I notice people get to experience. They tell stories and some are funny and some are sad, right? When you awaken love and laughter in your life, your mind lets go of fear. Have you noticed? And anxiety. And your happy spirit becomes the healing balm that transforms every aspect of your human experience. I'll read that again. When you awaken love and laughter in your life, your mind lets go of fear and anxiety, and your happy spirit becomes the healing balm that transforms every aspect of your human experience. So next time your heart breaks, be willing to welcome it, because it has been said, a broken heart is an open heart. When the heart's open, anything is possible. So, before we have a little more music and close the recording, I want to tell you that I have a couple of announcements after the recording. But before that, I want you to think about 5-10 years from now, and just wonder what this could look like, this community, this space. Maybe you see us be in a whole different space with a large room that seats 1,000 people. I can see that, because I know in my heart of hearts that people are hungry for spiritual teaching, spiritual community, more now than ever. And so those of you that have been coming for a while, it's easier for you to see that because you love to be part of this community. And you can't imagine your life without it or without the teaching. So that's, and one of the ways that we support that from becoming real is we support the center financially to the best of our ability. So just place your hands on your heart for a moment. And just think how you can support this community, whether it's with your pennies, your dollars, or with service, or with sharing and inviting friends and family. So your heart already knows. And then just think about it as circulation. As I give, I shall receive. And so in the privacy of your own mind and heart, just make a commitment to support this community financially to the best of your ability, knowing that you can do it in many ways. You can give today, you can go on the web, there's lots of different ways. And then before you open your eyes, just feel the gratitude for being part of this community, being part of this Center for Spiritual Living, being part of a teaching that truly transforms lives. And now let's do a closing treatment, which is our word for affirmative prayer. So right now, as I turn to my heart of hearts, which is so easy because my eyes are closed and my attention is withdrawn from the outer world. And I remember that there's only the I am, which is my essence. That's true for each of us. So when you hear I, my, me, I'm not speaking about me, I'm speaking to the higher self in all of us. And from it, as well as I have the honor and privilege to speak this word. So right here, right now, I open my heart and I realize it is safer than I ever imagined. Because the wider my heart is open, the more divine love can flow. I allow it to flow to every fiber of my being, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, and I let it do its healing work. And I discover in that I, as a unique individualized expression of the One, have a unique way of loving. It's different from everybody else, so I can now let go of expectations or assumptions. And I can allow love to do what it wants to do as it's received and as it is given, knowing that they are one and the same thing anyway. And so I trust today that love is doing the healing, not just individually, but collectively, including our beautiful planet. Trusting that allows for new ideas, new revelations, and new inspiration to step into the world as a life changer. I am blessed to have available to me a spiritual community, a teaching, and a consciousness that is ever expanding. And I'm ready to let go of whatever is in the way. If I need to know about it, I'll know about it. If not, it simply dissolves, freeing me up to express my highest and best self. And so it is.
So it is.
So I'm going to do another cover of a song that I really enjoy called Lost in the Cold, and it's by a band called Twiddle. I listened to a live version of it, and the singer, Holly, he talked about how this song he had actually found in his phone, in his notes on his phone from a time that he was really, really struggling, and he wrote the verses a while back, and then he came across them later when he was in a better mindset, and he wrote the choruses. So it kind of comes like full circle, and this song has helped me through a lot. I'm lost and I can't seem to find my way home. I've been burning up time, burning out my mind on an endless winding road. All my burdens keep me hurting, ever present, ever certain, all alone, they keep eating up my soul. It's hard to see the future when the present doesn't suit you. Every day feels like a blinding cold. Blinding cold. There's a hole in my energy, it's burning up my sanity, eroding the thrill of getting old. I don't fit in with society, it's blinding my integrity while undermining my goals. It's blurring my intensity and muting my ability to avoid the bumps in the road. I can't execute the skills I need, relax and keep my feeling free while stumbling out in the cold. Out in the cold. 'Cause I've been struggling for way, way too long, and it's time my wrongs, but I'll be okay. I'm stronger than I thought. They're getting bold with technology, it's eating up our decency, so why do I feel so alone? I'm disconnected from my family, my friends don't want to talk to me, it's getting out of control. I turned from my destiny and filled it with an evil seed that soon began to take hold. The truth was right in front of me, that all along I held the key to let me in from the cold, in from the cold. 'Cause I've been struggling for way too long, and it's time for a change. I'm ready to move on, and yes, I'm scared to right all my wrongs, but I'll be okay. I'm stronger than I thought, and I'm not gonna wait 1 minute of this life. I got a second chance to do what is right. I'm gonna dance in the rain and lay out in the sunshine. Take all my pain, turn it into moonlight. Well, I'm lost and I can't seem to find my way home. I've been burning up time, burning up my mind on an endless winding road. All my burdens keep me hurting, never present, never certain, all alone, they keep eating up my soul. It's hard to see the future when the present doesn't suit you. Every day feels like a blinding cold, blinding cold. 'Cause I've been struggling for way too long, and it's time for a change. I'm ready to move on, and yes, I'm scared to right all my wrongs, but I'll be okay. I'm stronger than I thought, and I'm not gonna waste 1 minute of this life. I got a second chance to do what is right. I'm gonna dance in the rain and lay out in the sunshine. Take all my pain, turn it into moonlight. Take all my pain and melt it with the sunshine. Take all my pain and turn it into white light. Take all my pain and give myself a good life.